Hello, everyone. My name is Gerard Gatch, and I'll be the moderator for today's webinar on the topic of single-use interface on twin-column LPLC systems, a hybrid design that allows the use in lower classification cleanrooms. Thank you for joining this presentation, which I think you'll find very interesting. The presenter will focus on the interface between single-use buffer, feed, and CIP solution bags, and a stainless steel chromatography system. He'll touch on the following topics: single-use interface, the challenge, why did we do this? What does the single-use interface do for the end user? How it works, and then we'll have a summary of the Q&A. Okay, today's presenter. Wayne Netney is the Global Sales Director for YMC Process Technologies Group, and he's responsible for the sales of biopharmaceutical downstream processing equipment globally. Wayne has over 30 years of sales and management experience in this industry. He holds a BS in microbiology from the University of Michigan. Please welcome Wayne Netney. Wayne?
Thank you, Gerard. 30 years seems like a long time. I'd like to welcome everyone listening to this presentation. Our topic for today is how to integrate a stainless steel chromatography system into a purification process which primarily uses single-use components. Although much of the information I will discuss today will focus on the interfaces and the aseptic boundaries into and out of the skid, I want to emphasize that within the skid, it is critical to select appropriate components. And when I say appropriate in this case, I mean components which are designed and tested to be cleanable. It is also important to follow BPE standards of piping design and have well thought out automated sanitization recipes to ensure that all product contact surfaces are properly sanitized. Our challenge when developing this design, the one that I'll show you today, was to allow for the execution of chromatography unit operations using a stainless steel system in a controlled but non-classified manufacturing suite. Now, within that suite, the product, buffers, and WFI going into the skid will be supplied from gamma irradiated single-use containers and tubing sets, and the product containing elution peaks or flow-through peaks will be similarly collected into pre-sterilized single-use containers. Once connected, sanitization needs to be automated such that all product contact surfaces are sufficiently cleaned. A critical component choice in this design was the selection of the connectors to and from the skid, which become the critical interface between the single-use and stainless steel portions of the process. What was selected through collaboration with this particular customer was the multi-connection aseptic links connector supplied by Millipore Sigma. These connectors consist of a gamma irradiated portion connected to a single-use container and tubing, and its mate connected to the system, which can be sanitized using sodium hydroxide or another sanitizing agent. After the process step is completed, the side attached to the system can remain in place to keep the system closed to the environment to minimize exposure to bioburden. This diagram shows the inlets connected to one of 3 pumps on this particular system. The connections are attached to the system along a common CIP header. During the initial sanitization mode, sodium hydroxide flows through the header to flood it with sanitization solution. The system then executes a series of automated flush cycles to sanitize all product contact surfaces within the skid, including the skid side of the links connectors. Once this is completed, the connectors are engaged, which aseptically opens the flow path to and from the single-use containers attached to the inlets and outlets of the skid. The system is now ready to execute the chromatography step, whether that be a single column batch capture or polishing step, or a multi-column capture or sequential polishing step. After the chromatography is completed, the system can be sanitized again and either blown dry or filled with a storage solution. The connectors on the system can remain in place, keeping the system closed to the environment until it is needed again. This picture gives you a closer look at the individual connections. And you can see down at the bottom, the common header that is, there we go, get my arrow moving. The common header, which supplies the sodium hydroxide to the entire system, and then it will flush up through these individual valves to sanitize the various parts of the system. The design can obviously be modified to match the number of inlets specified on a system. This particular system is set up for inline buffer dilution, so it has 3 pumps, a total of 16 inlets to those 3 pumps with an additional inlet to supply the sodium hydroxide. This just gives you a little closer look at the header and the place where the connections are made. And here is the single-use connector. Obviously, this is a short tubing run. The tubing runs are long enough to allow you to supply 1,000-liter bags, I think, in this particular case. The approach of using aseptic connectors to mate stainless steel and single-use portions of a process is well described in this paper, this white paper by BPOG, which was just published last year, 2019. And we'll send a link to this paper as a follow-up to this presentation. Okay, keys for success when you implement this is really to start out clean and maintain a closed system. Can't emphasize this enough. You keep the system closed, sanitize it, keep your single-use connectors on the system, on the inlets and outlets to keep it closed. You have to ensure that all the components and piping that you've selected are optimized for sanitization and closed system operation. All gases and liquids introduced to the system must be sterile filtered. Now, if you are doing a longer term run and you think there's a risk of filter plugging, we offer this with the redundant filters in parallel, so that if one filter plugs, you can automatically divert the flow through the second clean filter, which is already in place. And then the sanitization between the runs and within a process must be properly designed, and it should be automated to ensure consistency each and every time. A look towards the future. One of the things that we are looking at is the use of ozone to execute the sanitization step. Ozone is delivered as a gas, which facilitates the complete exposure of internal surfaces. It breaks down quickly, and it has been used as a sanitizing, sterilizing agent by many other industries, including dairy and semiconductor manufacturers, for over a decade. Systems are being tested now and could be available for commercial use within the next couple of years. In conclusion, I've discussed the use of a single-use interface approach of connecting a stainless steel chromatography system to single-use delivery or receiving containers. There are systems in use today that use this technology in a clinical manufacturing setting. There are video links which demonstrate the links connector you can watch online, and there's a white paper available from BPOG, which I showed you before, which we will send you a link to as a follow-up to this presentation. Okay, I'm now going to turn the microphone back over to Gerard, who will share some additional information, and I'll be back in a couple of minutes to answer your questions. Gerard?
Hey, thank you very much, Wayne. That was an excellent, concise presentation. This webinar was sponsored by YMC. Since 1980, YMC has been a leader in chromatography, producing bench and prep scale HPLC and LPLC systems, packing resin, and columns. YMC is a global company with manufacturing and offices in over 10 countries. And just a reminder that other aspects on the topic of automation, hardware, process modes of continuous and batch chromatography by YMC are covered in focused webinars available on YouTube. So you just go to YouTube and you'd search on YMC process technologies. These are anywhere from 15 to 40-minute long seminars given by subject matter experts on each of these topics and more than what is represented on this screen. All right, I'd like to bring back Wayne for the Q&A session. So audience, continue to submit your questions. And let's see, let's kick it off with how long have such interfaces been in use?
Yeah, I think we got our first request over almost 10 years ago on this. Certainly the connectors used are slightly different and the design slightly different, but we have been using this single-use to stainless steel interface strategy for almost 10 years now.
Okay, thank you. Is someone interested? Is this available to order and retrofit into my existing skid?
Good question. Not an uncommon question. And really the answer is no. I mean, anything is possible, but these are really purpose-built add-ons, and there's a lot tied into the automation that really makes it more suitable to apply to a new system and not retrofit.
Okay, very good. Next question, does the connection between the bags, I'm assuming the single-use bags, and the skid ever get broken?
Good question. Yeah, when your container runs out, you certainly need to be able to change it. So that's makes the selection of the connector critical. That the connector must be able to be broken and reconnected and still maintain your sterility. When you reconnect it, you would generally reconnect it with a with a new gamma irradiated bag and tubing set for the disposable side, and you would connect it to the in-place portion of the connector that is on the stainless steel system. So yes.
So I think you just touched on now answering this question. Are the connectors attached to the stainless steel flow path reused? The single-use components have a connector in each set.
Well, so you can't keep those on the system. I think generally between manufacturing runs, I think they are they generally change both sides. But you certainly within the manufacturing run, as you are breaking that connection and reconnecting, the portion that is attached to the stainless steel system remains in place. And in fact, when at the end of the process, when you are breaking down, you leave that side in place, as I mentioned before, to keep the whole system closed. No reason to ever expose it to the environment.
Okay. Can the YMC multi-column system operate connected to a perfusion bioreactor for continuous long-term operation and maintain bioburden control? Has this already been done in the industry?
There's no reason that these cannot be used in an extended situation, but certainly I'd suggest, reading the information that is in that BPOG report, and some validation work will have to be done to verify long-term sterility. But again, the idea, short-term or long-term, is that you start out with a clean system, maintain it closed, and then you can do intermittent sanitization, within the run, just to make sure that the bioburden is down to zero or as close to it as possible.
Okay. How many cycles are the connectors rated for?
That's a good question. You tell me, Gerard. Do you know that one?
I think if people look into the BPOG paper, I'm going to say that we really need to check on this to make it fact-based. We are not representing in any form or fashion, the supplier. But I think it was a 6, and I believe it went. Now they're rating it for much higher, somewhere around 10 or 12. But we need to check back with the actual supplier to answer that competently.
Right. And certainly something that they can give you help with and should be part of your validation.
Okay, a few more questions and then we'll wrap it up. Can I use any disposable aseptic connector?
Well, they have to have certain attributes. You have to be able to do multiple cycles, turning them on and off. You should be able to break the connection and reconnect it. The skid side of the connector would have to be tolerant to whatever sanitization solutions that you are using. And that side also should, the whole thing should be tolerant of a little bit of back pressure, because those are going to be sitting open while the skid is under pressure. So there'll be a little back pressure on those. But so with reservations, this is certainly not the only connector that you can use, but you have to make sure that the attributes match the needs of this interface.
Okay, now we had promised to limit this to about 15 to 20 minutes, so we're going to have one final question and then we'll wrap it up. This question is, I am interested in this solution. Are there brochures available?
We don't have a specific brochure, but there is a white paper that is available on our website that you can read more about it. Frankly, I think the best way is, if you are interested in this as it is attached to a chromatography system, is to contact one of us, myself, Gerard, your local salesperson, and we will be happy to walk you through the process. And this presentation, contains a lot of good information about it and will be available, as Gerard mentioned, online.
All right. Hey, thank you, Wayne. Again, a great presentation, keeping it concise. It's much more complicated, and I know that if we had an hour, we could easily spend that amount of time on walking through the details of this design. I want to thank everyone for your questions. I want to thank everyone for their participation. For those who have an immediate application, you can reach out to us at info@ymcpt.com. That's info@ymcpt.com. We'll end our session now. Thank you and have a good day.